Okay. Video going. You don't want to videotape me. You want to videotape the guy that's going to be coming in here. So, hey, anyway, I just want to take a few minutes just to kind of open up this session. First of all, thank you very much for coming out to spend some time with Medal of Honor recipient. As I tell anybody, I've over the last several years really got to spend a lot more time as I've gotten increased my involvement with the Medal of Honor Foundation, the Congressional Medal of Honor Society. But anytime I get to spend a minute with the Medal of Honor recipient, it's a cherished moment for me. These guys are phenomenal. They're all different, but you can learn a lot from them. They are who they are because of what they did, but I can tell you that they did what they did, not because they were looking for this medal. They were doing this to save those that didn't make it out. And so again, their set of values, their look on life is completely different. So with that, what I want to do is really talk about it. I was telling Woody here, the last time I got to see him was about 14 months ago, and it was in Norfolk. During the commissioning of the Expeditionary Sea Base that was named in his honor. And as the team told me, I think he was off the coast of Croatia. There we go. It was off the coast of Croatia. So, again, just a phenomenal and a testament to, what Woody is all about. So what I want to do really quick is we have a video I want to show you for those that don't know much about Woody, but I think he's also a bit of an energizing bunny because he has energy, and it takes two of them to keep up with one of him. So we'll tell you all about that. But it gives you a little history about Woody and his history in the service and how he got to get the medal. So what we do is go ahead and show the video here.
There are moments in history so monumental they become frozen in time. Yet, as with many of history's great moments, the flag raising on Mount Suribachi, victory on Iwo Jima, victory in the Second World War, proved possible only through the efforts and sacrifices of thousands. February 19, 1945, 0900 hours. The first of 70,000 Marines hit the black sand shores of the Pacific island of Iwo Jima. They are met with silence, the 22,000 Japanese defenders offering no resistance. Hope rose among the Marines that the massive pre-invasion bombing campaign had knocked out the island's defenses. Silence was soon shattered by a hailstorm of bullets as the Japanese defenders executed their plan, waiting until the beaches were full of men and equipment before unleashing a devastating barrage. Across the landing beaches, devoid of cover, men were cut down by fire from entrenched Japanese positions throughout the island and atop Mount Suribachi. Iwo Jima was becoming a bloodbath. Landing on the island with the 3rd Division was a young Marine from West Virginia, Herschel Williams, known to friends as Woody. A veteran of Guam, Woody Williams had been trained in demolition and in the use of flamethrowers, valuable skills against a heavily dug-in enemy. By February 23rd, fighting for every inch, the Marines were making progress. With Suribachi surrounded, a patrol was sent to scale the summit, ordered to secure the mountain and, if the opportunity presented, raise the Stars and Stripes. Not far from the mountain base, several American tanks advanced slowly through the black volcanic sands. Suddenly, they hit a network of reinforced concrete pillboxes and buried mines. They were trapped in the kill zone. Behind the tanks was the young Marine Corporal Woody Williams. Knowing his comrades were now an easy target, he ran toward the enemy positions, armed only with his 70-pound flamethrower. With limited cover from 4 Marine riflemen, Williams fought his way through, blasting pillbox after pillbox with his flamethrower. He climbed atop one pillbox, firing into the bunker below. Then again, when charged by a group of enemy soldiers attacking with bayonets, Marines watched in awe as the young West Virginian, who was once turned away from the military for being too short, took complete control of the battlefield. He was one man, in one moment, changing the course of action during one of the toughest battles of the war. 4 hours later, the enemy many guns fell silent, thanks to the extraordinary heroism of Corporal Woody Williams. During his epic moment, he had missed another epic moment, as Mount Suribachi was secured and the flag raised to the cheers of Marines across Iwo Jima. Several months later, the heroism of Woody Williams was recognized when President Harry S. Truman welcomed him to the White House, where he was presented with the Medal of Honor. 27 men received the Medal of Honor for battle on Iwo Jima, the only battle where American casualties exceeded those of the Japanese. Today, only Williams survives, the last living symbol of American valor displayed long ago on a small Pacific island covered in black sand and ash. For 70 years, Woody Williams has worn America's highest military award in honor of those Marines who on February 23, 1945, gave their lives to protect his. His moment of valor represents the stories of thousands of individual Americans who in their own moments sacrificed everything for a cause larger than themselves.
Absolutely amazing story here. So with Woody, all I'll do for introductions is, so we have Captain Mitch Taco Bell that will be doing the interview. It's appropriate that we have a Marine interviewing the Marine. They kind of keep it at the same level there. That's my Army pun on the Marines. So, but anyway, without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Herschel Woody Williams and Captain. The only thing I'll comment as I depart here is at the end of this hour session, you'll wish it lasted 2 or 3 hours. This is a gentleman that can really enlighten you. So looking forward to you all spending some time with Woody. Everybody have a great day. Thanks for all that you do.
Okay, can you guys all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, thank you. First of all, Woody, thank you so much for coming out. And Randy Stillinger and your crew, thank you so much for putting this together for all the veterans. I take it everybody here is a veteran. Raise your hand. Veterans, outstanding. Thank you for your service. We appreciate it as well. As a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel, our life, as we know it as a Marine, are sitting on the shoulders of giants like Woody. Men that did stuff so heroic, and I still don't know where he and the rest of the Marines in World War II facing imminent death were able to come up with the courage to do stuff. And so today we're just going to talk about his experiences on Iwo Jima. Is everybody familiar with the Battle of Iwo Jima? Okay, outstanding. For those of you in the audience that don't know, this was the bloodiest battle that the Marine Corps suffered in the entire war. We lost more Marines in the Battle of Iwo Jima, over, I think, 6,000 dead, 18,000 casualties. The Japanese were about 18,000 strong. And from what I remember being there for the 50th anniversary, there were only 265 or 68 survivors out of the entire Japanese army stationed on Iwo Jima. And that actually included, I think, a few that gave up as late as 1949 that were hiding in the caves. So it was an amazing battle on both sides, but for the Marines, incredible. Woody, most people don't know, so when did you actually join the Marine Corps?
The 27th of May, 1943.
So we're in the heat of the battle. Everything's been going on for a couple of years, and you're a young kid. You want to serve your country. You join the toughest branch. You join the Marines, and you end up going over to the Pacific. So what was your first experience in combat?
really Guam. But let me say first of all, before I answer all of his questions. American Airlines have been exceedingly wonderful to our foundation. There are many things we could have not accomplished if American Airlines hadn't come to the rescue. So we are very grateful for that support and what they have done to make our foundation what it is today. So thank you.
Well, you've been actually the recipient of a lot of stuff, because I've known you for over a dozen years, between Skyball, Snowball, Medal of Honor flights.
Yes.
Honor flights that you've partaken, flown with us. So you actually, you're part of the American family, whether you like it or not. You know. So going back as a young guy, the experience of the senior NCOs, what did it feel like? Do you remember the emotions before you even went into Guam your first time?
Absolutely. We were on Guadalcanal, which had been taken in 1942. And of course, it was basically a secure island because the air wings had already came there. The Navy was already there, full force. So the island was basically secure, but there were still Japanese on the island of Guadalcanal. And every once in a while, they'd send out a patrol. Somebody would spot something and they'd send out a patrol to search them out and make sure they weren't going to be available to do any more damage. But we left Guadalcanal on a ship, and they would not tell us where we were going until we got aboard the ship. Once we got aboard, they told us we were going to Saipan as a reserve unit to the 2nd Marine Division that was invading Saipan. And in the event they would need more troops. And we sat out way out in the ocean. We couldn't see anything, couldn't hear anything, had no idea what was going on. But we sat there for several days, and they finally decided they did not need us as a backup. So they sent us back to a little island called Marshall Islands, where we had supplies, or where the Navy had furnished us supplies, and to refurbish the ship because we'd eaten up everything on the ship, and it needed to be serviced too. And so we reserviced the ship. Then we got back on the ship, still not knowing where we're going to go. And once we get out into the ocean, then they tell us that we're going to take Guam back. And most of us never heard tell of Guam. We didn't even know that we owned it. You know? But on July the 7th, we hit Guam to take it back from the Japanese. And I was a flamethrower demolition person, trained to either blow it up or burn it up. And the first day, after we got off ship or got off the boat, and they brought the supplies aboard, I put a flamethrower on in the event we would need it. And the coral rock on Guam was so severe that they couldn't even dig caves. This is almost all coral rock. And then, of course, they had no way of digging caves, so I carried that thing for a day or two and no opportunity to use it, so I ditched it because I'm still a rifleman. And so I never picked it up again on Guam. We had no use for it whatsoever. After we got out of the cleared area on Guam into the jungle area, it was so thick, you couldn't have used the flamethrower anyway. And then we finally secured Guam on August the 10th, and we had to build our own camp. We were out in the middle of the island, and there was nothing there, so we began blowing up trees and digging holes, and I was a demolition guy, so I could blow a hole in the ground. And we built our own camp where we stayed until it was shipped out to go to Iwo Jima.
Well, most people don't realize, all right, so how tall were you in 1943?
5'6",
5'6", and how much did you weigh?
about 150.
150 pounds. So imagine you weigh 150 pounds and you have a 70-pound flamethrower strapped to your back. That's, I mean, I love my wife carrying around our babies and stuff, but I couldn't imagine humping 70 pounds on my back as a flamethrower. Did you, I always wondered, did you ever worry about like catching a ricochet, or would it explode if a bullet hits your?
Yeah, we tried that. When we got when we got the flamethrowers on Guadalcanal, none of us had ever seen one, didn't even know they existed. And that was the first time that our unit had access to them. And they came in a great big wooden crate, and we tore the crates out, and here's this piece of equipment that none of us had ever seen. It did have a manual with it that gave all the part numbers and how to take it apart and put it back together, but no instructions on how do you use this crazy thing. And it did have a bag of phosphorus powder with the flamethrower. And it had instructions on it that you would mix this phosphorus powder with gasoline, which would form a gel, real sticky stuff, and that would be your fuel. And the air tank on the back of the flamethrower had about 1,700 PSI in it, so that would force the gel out. It wouldn't go very far, and it was a single stream. And you're down here trying to hit a target, and you couldn't aim, of course. So it only lasted 72 seconds. That's all the air that you had. So our gunnery sergeant, who was by chance an old China Marine, he was in Peking in about 1935, 36. One of the toughest Marines I've ever served under. But he didn't like that stuff because he didn't think it would be effective. And we began experimenting with other fuels. We tried, I'm not sure of the order, it's been too many years ago, but we tried motor oil and gasoline equal to using the amount of gasoline that they said we would use with the phosphorus powder. And it wouldn't go anywhere. The oil was heavier than the gas, so it didn't go anywhere. So finally we ended up with diesel fuel and mixed diesel fuel with the gasoline. And we experimented a lot because if you got too much diesel fuel, didn't have any heat to the flame, and it didn't have enough, then it would just go out into the air and spread out, wouldn't go anywhere. So finally, with his help, we hit the right solution to where we could get about 15 to 20 yards on the ground, shoot the weapon on the ground, and roll this great big ball of flame into the target. And that's what we practice on. So we still had that wondering, if somebody shoots this thing, is it going to explode on the back and you become a rocket or something?
I always wondered about that, you know, the poor dude holding the flamethrower like, you know, hey, shoot me.
Well, we set it out in the field, and of course, wasn't anything else around, but we set out in the field and shot at it with M1 rifles, trying to penetrate it. Couldn't do it with that, so we used a 30 caliber machine gun. We shot at it with a 30 caliber machine gun. It still just ricocheted off because the metal was so thick, it couldn't penetrate it, and you couldn't get a solid hit on it because it'd go one direction or the other. So we satisfied ourselves that it was not going to explode, but the hose that ran from the flamethrower to the gun that we used, we cut that hose into several times with a machine gun, and but it was real heavy rubber, and it had a spring inside of it so that it wouldn't let it kink. And we I think got reasonably successful at it.
So you carried a 45 sidearm for personal protection, right?
Yeah.
Because you couldn't carry a rifle. That was your battle weapon.
Yeah.
And how
Of
many?
course, I never did figure out why I had a 45 when I got a flamethrower in my hand.
Well, 72 seconds, you run out of gas. You need something, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Somebody thought I did anyway.
Well, 72 seconds. So would the 4 men that were assigned to you, would they run back to grab more oxygen canisters, or how did they service this?
I had, there were 6 in my little special weapons unit.
Right.
And they were also trained as flamethrower demolition guys. And the plan was that when we entered combat, there's still Marine riflemen. Everybody in the Marine Corps is a rifleman.
Amen.
And they won't give you up, they won't let you give that up, So they would be a rifleman in 1st, 2nd, or 3rd platoon. And we would send these 2 individuals as riflemen with the platoon. Then if they need a demolition or a flamethrower, then they would come to the supply unit in headquarters and get whatever they needed to do the job that somebody had asked them to do. And all 6 of those individuals, by the 23rd of February, we'd been there 3 days, they were gone. I never did know what happened to them. I never knew whether they were killed or wounded. I never did know. That information was never given to us. So I lost all those, or they were all sacrificed in some fashion.
That was on Iwo Jima. That we're talking about, Iwo Jima.
That was
So,
Iwo Jima, yeah.
So you get done with Guam, you practiced with your weapon, so you know the use of it. If for those that don't know, when they did the initial landing on Iwo Jima, the sand's real soft, and the Navy bombarded the island for 3 days. They wanted, I think, 7 days, and the Navy said, we'll give you 3.
Yeah.
But what you don't understand, having gone through the cave system there, I've experienced, you go down into the caves that they built, they were 80 feet underground. So these 16-inch shells did really nothing for weeding out the Japanese. So as soon as the shelling stopped, they allowed all the Marines to get on the sand, and then they just started hitting them. Which, that brings me back to another point. You came in on the 2nd day of the invasion, just as bloody as the first, but
Yes.
I can't imagine sitting there watching the remains of your friends or the wounded coming back to the ship, knowing it's my turn in the grinder. Where did you spiritually, or where did you find the courage with your friends to make amends and head up? How did you conquer that fear? I mean, we all have fear.
Sure.
When we face incredible odds like that, but how did you overcome your fear?
Well, I guess duty-wise, I was trained by other Marines to do the job that I was supposed to do. So I don't think I ever questioned that I was supposed to do that. That was my job, and whatever it required, that's what I was going to do. Because we've been trained in such a way that you didn't question something. You didn't say, well, I don't think I want to do that.
There were no safe spaces.
Not to a gunnery sergeant, anyway.
Hey, there were no safe spaces in World War II. You're not going to go hide in a closet somewhere.
Well, my commanding officer, Donald Beck, was a captain, but he's the guy that had, I think, more courage than I did, because he's out front. He was a leader and not a pusher, and he was out front. And I assume I got inspiration from him, because he constantly was moving forward as much as we could. And he had lost all but 2 of his officers in the company. And yet he kept going, never gave up. Once we got across the first airfield, and that was our goal. They told us before we got off ship that we were going to be the spearhead of the three divisions. We had the fourth on our left, the fifth division on our right, and we were going to be the spearhead to go up the center of the island. And when they mentioned the first airfield, of course, none of us had ever seen them. We didn't know what we were looking for or at. So when we got to the first airfield and tried to cross the first airfield, there's no protection on an airfield. It was just flat and dirt. They had not paved the airfield. It was still packed dirt. And it had bomb craters or holes in it, mortar or artillery. And we would try to find one of those holes to run to before we left the position we were in, because there was no protection, and we lost a tremendous number of Marines just getting across the first airfield. And once we got across the airfield, we hit this great number of pillboxes that we call them. And of course, we've changed the language now. We call them bunkers, but in my day, they were pillboxes. And we hit this string of pillboxes that were built to protect the airfield, really. And they were reinforced concrete. Some of them were large, some small, some may have a one-man type thing. And the Japanese were inside those buildings with sand piled on top of the pillbox, so the mortar or a bomb either would drop on it, it would hit the sand, but it would never reach the pillbox itself. And the only target we had as we were trying to move forward was about an 8-inch opening in the front of the pillbox, clear across the front of it. And the Japanese were inside with their weapons sticking out this 8-inch slot, and they had a complete field of fire. They could fire in almost any direction except to the back. And that's our only target to shoot at, to try to keep them from being able to shoot at us. And as we would jump up and run from one place to another to try to advance, they would annihilate us. And we would have to back off. We made several attempts to move forward, and the fire was just so heavy, and we losing so many Marines, the captain would draw us back and reform and try again. Well, a little before noon of that day, he drew us off the line, got us back to the edge of the airfield, and there was a huge crater there, probably a battle wagon piece of artillery, but it was a huge crater. And he gathered everybody that was still able to be there as NCOs together in that shell crater. And I was a corporal, acting sergeant. Marine Corps got a lot of use out of that, you know. It makes you feel good that you're acting sergeant.
But you didn't get the pay.
Never did pay me for it.
Yeah, we need the back pay. I think we need to submit a thing for back pay.
So he called us all, or called all those NCOs for the meeting, and I wasn't going to go, but I'm a corporal. I'm not classified as an NCO yet. I had to be a sergeant or a veteran. And my commanding officer, my first sergeant came to me and he said, he wants you there. So naturally I went and got in the hole with everybody else. And he was trying to figure out what they're going to do. And in that process, somewhere along the way, he said to me, do you think you could do something with a flamethrower? And I have no idea my response. When we got back to Guam, back to our tents, and somebody was being interviewed by a newsman, he said that my response was, I'll try. I don't know that I said that, but he said I said it, so I accept his word. And so at that point, he told me to select 4 Marines to give me protection while I'm using the flamethrower. And 2 of those individuals were in my old squad before I got put in this special unit. And I selected those 2, and then I picked up 2 other Marines. I had no idea who they were, where they were from. We were so disorganized, it didn't make any difference what outfit you belonged to. You were a Marine, and you were expected to fight, and that was it, you know. So I selected these 2 other individuals to join the other 2. And their job, as I instructed them, was to fire at the pillbox that I'm trying to get to put the flame in the pillbox.
And how far did you have to get? How close did you have to get to lob that
Within,
napalm?
within 20, 25 yards,
Oh, okay.
yeah. I could roll this ball of flame about 10 yards or so. And we'd shoot it in about 3 to 4 second bursts. Remember, we only got 72 minutes of
Seconds of fuel, right?
yeah. So we'd shoot it in bursts, and it would be a great big round ball of flame. And it would roll. If you kept it on the ground, it would roll. If you shot it in the air, it wouldn't go anywhere. Because the air resistance would stop it. And I instructed them to shoot at this aperture in the pillbox as I would try to reach that pillbox close enough to get flame inside. That's the only way we could eliminate the enemy in there. And we had what I think we made up the title, because I don't think it was an official MOS job, but somebody decided, wasn't me, but somebody decided we needed, once we burned the cave out or burned pillbox out, there ought to be an explosion placed in there to make sure that everything's going. And so we took a 2x2 piece of wood and nailed about a 12-inch board on the end of it. And then we would put our demolition on a board, tape it on there with what we call duct tape today, but we didn't call it then. We just called it tape. So we'd tape that on there. And we called that guy a pole charge man. Pole charge. Because he used to carry the pole. And then when I finished with the flamethrower, he used to get it in the hole of the cave or in the pillbox and set it off. And I picked a guy by the name of Slager, who was in my squad, as my pole charge man. And I told him, just follow me. And he knew what to do from there. So he and I start advancing toward the pillbox, and we got into a little shell crater in preparation to reach over going toward the pillbox. And I told him, when you crawl out of here, stay on the ground. And he didn't listen to me. Well, I crawled out on my belly, but when he came out, he was all hunched over, carrying this pole charge, and a bullet hit right there. Penetrated his helmet, hit the liner inside, went all the way around, and when it did, it was coming in at an angle. It threw him back in the hole we just crawled out of. And I heard it smack, and naturally looked back, and he wasn't there, so I crawled back in the hole with him, because I thought he was gone. But he's okay. He's you know, his head's not right, but everything else is okay.
Talk about ringing your bell. I mean, getting hit by a 30 caliber slug in the helmet.
Yeah.
That's not good.
So he was finished.
He listened to you after that, though, didn't he?
Never had a pole charge man after that.
Oh, you did? I was gonna say, he listened to you after that and crawled out, right?
Yeah.
So your first pillbox, you took out 5.
7.
7,
Yeah.
sorry. So your first one, okay, I got lucky with this one. Did you ever feel that? And then, okay, now the next one, and oh, the next one, never ending series.
I don't think I ever had that thought, really, but when I approached it, this was a huge pillbox. It was a big one. And they were shooting at me with a Nambu, which is equivalent to our .30 caliber machine gun. There's 31 caliber. And they were shooting at me with that Nambu. And as I crawled reasonably close to the pillbox, suddenly the bullets are ricocheting off of my flamethrower.
Oh,
And fortunately, he could only lower his barrel so far because of this slat in the pillbox. But whatever made me crawl forward, I have no idea. But I just kept crawling. And because my intention, of course, was to get the flame in that pillbox. That was my goal. And the bullets were ricocheting off, going up. And whether they were hitting the tank or the air tank, I have no idea. But I remember that. And so I crawled to the side when that happened to try to get out of his range of fire. And I saw this blue little curl of smoke up on top of the pillbox. As I said, they put sand on these pillboxes several feet deep to take care of artillery and mortars and that sort of thing. And when they did, they sloped it off on one side. The sand was just sloping. And I got back on the side of the pillbox and I could see this little smoke. So I crawled up on top of the pillbox. I figured there was an opening up there someplace, but smoke's coming out. And I got up on top and there was a pipe up there that they cooked in there. Some of them were actually sealed. The door was sealed once they put them in there and they couldn't get out. This one did not, that was not the case in this pillbox, but I saw that smoke, so I just took the nozzle of my flamethrower and stuck it down that pipe, let it go. And of course, it annihilated everybody inside. But that was the first pillbox that I got. One of the things that has always bugged me, still does today, will till the day I die, I guess. And I've talked to psychologists and they don't have an answer either. But I'm reasonably sure no Marine back at headquarters said, "Hey, just wait, I'll bring you one." But how did I get the other 5 flamethrowers? I used 6. How did I get the other 5? Because I have no memory of how I retrieved. Once we used the flamethrower, either the air pressure or the fuel up, we just peeled out of it and left it lay on the ground. It was useless at that point.
they didn't go back and take it to the rear and recycle it, or
Huh?
they didn't recycle them, or they just,
Oh, yeah, we'd refill them and resurface them.
right?
But at the time, it's dead, so you just get rid of it. But how did I get the other 5 flamethrowers? Since I can't remember going back and getting them. The only answer that a psychologist gave me was, whether he's right or wrong, I've accepted it anyway, that if you really do not try to remember something, you will not remember something. Well, I don't. And it's bugged me all my life.
Well, you remind me of Bob Patterson when I ask him, tell me about the day you got your medal. He goes, you want my version or you want the Army's version? I'm like, well, give me your version. He goes, I don't remember.
That's right.
I go, okay, give me the Army's version. He goes, well, they say I did this, this, and
Yeah.
this. So in the heat of the battle, you, ordinary man doing extraordinary feats. So you managed to pull off all of this and clear the way for the tanks and for the guys to be able to attack Mount Suribachi. And if you guys don't know, Mount Suribachi is about 600 feet tall. They still had numerous Japanese up there spotting artillery and things like that. So we had to take the mountain, which is a volcanic mountain. The Nambu machine gun that he speaks of holds a 30-round magazine and shoots so fast. So as soon as that 30 rounds goes, the guy's got to reload it, which would give you a chance to try to get across. But, I do want to talk about your foundation and the Gold Star memorials that you all build across the nation. Why did you, let's take back, what prompted you to start this? Because it's a fascinating story if you guys haven't met Woody.
Well, prior to my entering the Marine Corps, I'd already resigned my job. And I wanted to go in the Marine Corps. I've been asked 100 times, what'd you select the Marine Corps? I don't know, because we had no military base, and I very seldom ever seen a Marine. We did have a couple of guys back in the 30s that went into the Marine Corps to make a living, and they got to come home one time a year for 30 days. Called a 30-day furlough. And the Marines were required to wear their dress blues all the time they were home. And I can remember this individual, one of those individuals that was always very neat, sharp, polite, all that. And his uniform was always immaculate. And I guess that's what encouraged me to go into the Marine Corps, but I didn't like that ugly Army uniform.
Plus you heard the Marines had the best chow, right?
I had two brothers that were drafted, and they would come home occasionally. They'd hitchhike home from Maryland and Ohio and spend a weekend, and they had to wear that brown uniform, but took all your civilian clothes away from them. Didn't have any. And I thought that's the ugliest thing in the world. I don't want that. I think that's what encouraged me to go to the Marine Corps. But just before going in, looking for a job because I had no income, and a school buddy of mine, we went to school together, grade school. He was a dispatcher for a cab bus company. And I called Vic and I said, I need a job. I need something to do, earn some money. And, I'll wash buses or scrub the floor, whatever you want me to do. He said, we need cab drivers. Because he said, the cab drivers are resigning, going into the military. We can't keep enough cab drivers to service the area. And he said, I know you're supposed to be 21 to drive a cab, but he said, give me a few days and we'll take care of that. A few days later, he handed me a driver's license that showed I was 21 years old. I don't know where he got it or how he got it, and I didn't question it. So I started driving cab from 6 in the evening till 6 in the morning. And the War Department at that time were releasing telegrams in the mid-afternoon to the Western Union office that came in on what was known as a ticker tape. How many of you ever heard of a ticker tape? Wow, I'm amazed. Most people never heard tell of it. But it came in on a little strip of ticker tape, and they'd take it off and put it on a telegram sheet. And the War Department had furnished them with envelopes with their return address on it, so it looked like it was coming from the War Department, not Western Union. And they would put that in the envelope. Then they'd call the cab company and tell them, we've got a telegram to be delivered to so-and-so or such address. The cab dispatcher would call the driver and say, we go pick up the telegram and deliver it. So I got a number of those deliveries where, as an 18-year-old, I'm handing these people a telegram that they already know what it is. There'd been enough of them come into the community from Europe and the Pacific that people knew what that telegram or what that envelope represented. And I give this person, usually a lady, 9 out of 10 were either wives or mothers, women, because the man's out working, doing something else, or usually women answer the door anyway. Men are too macho. But I'd hand them this telegram and all sorts of happening, you know.
Emotions.
Some of them would start crying immediately. I can remember one so specific that she just wilted. Well, I'm an 18-year-old. In my day, you would never hug another lady, even your own sister. Now, mom, yeah, you'd hug mom. But other than that, unless she was a girlfriend, you didn't hug another lady. And I didn't know what to do with that. It left a tremendous impression on my mind. And that stuck with me over the years. Then during my job as veterans counselor, I was the guy, or our officers were the guys, that were receiving the survivors coming to us, because once the military delivered the telegram, they were done. They made absolutely no more contact with that family. It was up to them to come to the VA to receive the benefits, file for the life insurance, to file for death benefits, to get your questions answered. It was up to the VA counselors to do that. And so I talked to a great number of surviving parents and widows and relatives over the years. And that, of course, always left an imprint. But the final thing that really convinced me we needed to do something in the way of recognition and honor of these Gold Star families. Gold Star mothers were reasonably well known. A lot of communities erected something to honor Gold Star mother, but the family itself, beyond mom, nobody ever mentioned Gold Star dad, Gold Star brother, Gold Star sister, grandma, grandpa. Those names never came up, as if they didn't exist. And I was speaking to a group of senior citizens in Parkersburg, West Virginia. They'd given me some title to talk about. They want me to talk about patriotism and community, what's our responsibility as a person living in a community and that kind of thing. And there were senior citizens, of course I was too, but I was talking about those things. And I looked back over the group and there were a great number of gray-headed ladies in the group. So I just stopped what I was saying. I said, I got a question I want to ask. Do we have any Gold Star mothers in this group? And several raised their hands. So we paid proper tribute and respect to that. And I went on, closed out my talk, and everybody was leaving the hall. One man stayed. He was sitting several seats back on the aisle of the seats. And I looked back and he had his head down. I didn't know whether he was ill or what. So I said to him, sir, is there something I can do, some way I can help you? And I got no response from him. I turned around, I had a briefcase with me and I passed out some literature, flag etiquette and some other stuff. I'm putting that away and I hear him walking toward me. It was a wooden floor. And he walked up right next to me, or just a little ways from me, and tears were flowing down his cheeks. And the only thing he said was, Dad's cried too. I had never in all my experience mentioned Gold Star Dad. I have no idea why. But I asked him if he would sit and tell me what happened, or tell me about it. And his son, he only had one boy. The mother had cancer, died just a couple months before the boy had already enlisted, had his reporting date to Fort Leonard Wood, and he could have gotten out of it, but he told his dad, no, I want to go. So he went through basic, ended up in Afghanistan, and there sacrificed his life. Dad lived alone. He's the one that got that knock on the door by these two Army officers that came to see him. And he said, I had nobody to talk to. I didn't know any other families in the community that had lost somebody. And we sat and cried together, and finally he got control of himself and left. And on the way back, about a 2-hour drive, I thought, we have got to do something in our state of West Virginia to honor the families, the loved ones, of all the names that we have on our Veterans Memorial on our Capitol grounds. There's 474, or excuse me, 11,474 names on that memorial. And every one of those sacrificed their lives in the military. And I thought, we have got to do something to pay tribute to those families. They're the ones that were left to grieve. And so, we've been talking about it, and then Brian, his brother, and he, and we all got together and decided, well, let's do something. You know. I was on a committee for a veteran cemetery we were building, and the committee's job was to decide where to put the flagpoles and administrative building, maintenance building, and all that stuff. And we were meeting about every 2 weeks. So I said to that committee, one of those meetings, I said, we need to do something to honor those names on that Veterans Memorial.
And so that's the Woody Williams Foundation.
Yeah.
And I wanted to interrupt you there because just for a second, if you all out there listening to the sound of my voice can assist, Randy Stillinger's daughter, Erin, a young girl, 13 years old, I believe, 13, or was she 13 when she started this? 13 years old, raised the funds, got the permission from the city of Keller, which we're doing the dedication later on tonight at 6 p.m., to build one of his monuments, which is an incredible piece where Gold Star families, and for those who don't know, you all know, but other people may go, Gold Star, I don't understand. When you serve, in World War II, it started, you would have blue stars. How many kids served? Each kid represented a star. If a child died, one of their kids died in battle, they got a gold star. And they would put that banner up on their front door. And it was a sacrifice that the mothers did. And he has the gold star right here, the blue star and the gold star.
If the person was serving on active duty, the people would put a blue star, hang this blue star in their window someplace. My mom had 3 of these hanging in her front window. I had 2 brothers in Europe, and then I was in the Pacific. And then the lady that started this out in California, if that person, and it did happen to her, she lost a son in Europe, she decided they had to have something to indicate the death of the person, the loss of the person. So then she just did the gold star and hung it over the blue. Now he's not coming home.
The ultimate sacrifice to the country. But If you all are interested, if you're listening to this, woodywilliamsfoundation.org, correct? woodywilliamsfoundation.org. You can go there, you can sign up, you can assist in these monuments. American Airlines is around the world, we're around the country. We have conclaves all over the place, bases. If you hear this and you decide that you want to participate and try to help, that's what we need to do. And Woody, I need to stop right here to open it up to see if we have any questions. Is that all right?
Yeah.
We have a couple more minutes. If anybody in the audience has a question, we have 2 microphones positioned. Feel free to come up and ask a question. Oh, surely we have somebody with one question for Woody. This is your one chance to talk to Woody Williams, Medal of Honor recipient, World War II. There we go.
First off, thank you, sir, so much for coming down. Neil Rath, we've met several times in the past, and it's always an inspiration to hear you. As a member of the unquestioned greatest generation that this nation has ever created, what advice would you have for the leaders of today's generation to be more like you?
Interpret that for me.
What advice would you give the up and coming leaders out there to be more, to take the grit and determination that you all had as a generation in the 40s? What would you tell the people now with the upcoming millennials and the young kids on Instagram and trying to have an Instagram following and all this stuff? What would you tell them? What's the secret to life, I guess, leadership?
Well, I have said for a long, long time that we only know what we are taught. If we don't teach it, it will not happen. So it's up to the parents and the people in the community to set the example for others who are going to follow in their footsteps. And it grieves me, it really does, that we have lost so much respect for our flag, for the very basic values that have always existed in America. It seems to me like we're losing that. Somehow, far beyond my little pea brain, we've got to restore that. I don't know how to do it, but we must restore love of country, respect of flag, and respect of each other.
Anybody else have a question you'd like to come up and ask Woody? Great one, Neil, by the way. Come on, Glenn Williams, you have a question. I know it's burning in your brain. You're thinking of something. I know you want to ask it. I heard it at breakfast.
Considering all of the horror you saw in Iwo Jima, I'm sure you doubted that you'd even come home. Can you describe your homecoming when you set foot on American soil for the first time after battle? And also, just out of curiosity, where were you when you heard the Japanese surrendered?
I'm sorry, my old hearing aids won't pick that up, but what do you think?
Repeat it for me.
So where were you?
You don't hear me either.
Okay, where were you when you got word that the Japanese surrendered?
Where was I when they?
Where were you when they surrendered? Yes, sir. Were you recouping back in Hawaii? Had your unit gone back to Hawaii, or were you?
No, I was on Guam.
You're on Guam, okay.
Oh, yeah.
And you guys are getting staged probably for the invasion of Japan.
Right. When we returned from Iwo Jima, we'd have been trained to fight in jungle warfare. That's all we knew. And when we came back, they had taken an area and made what was to be a road, and they built some false fronted buildings. They only have a front and a side propped up with 2x4s, but they built some false fronted buildings and had windows in them and door in them. And we began training how to go down a street in formation, but tactically, and how to approach a house, how to go through a door, how to get through a window and that kind of thing, because we were going to go to a city. We didn't know where. Of course, all of us, because of Tokyo Rose, that's the only thing we knew was Tokyo Rose. She talked to us every night. And we didn't know anything about other communities in Japan, but Tokyo was it. And that's where we're all going, we said to ourselves and to others. But we were really supposed to hit Kyushu and take that island. That was the plan. And when the bomb was dropped, and they said the war was over, we were still on Guam preparing to actually go to Japan.
You're like, thank you, Truman. Not one, but two.
The other part was tell a little bit about your homecoming.
Sure.
A little bit about
homecoming.
your homecoming.
In Fairmont?
Your homecoming when you
Oh,
came back
sure.
to the States.
Yeah. Well, I got home on the 29th of September, 1945, and went to Washington to receive the medal on October the 5th. And the city wanted to have a parade. I got 2 weeks leave after I got my medal. And they wanted to have a parade, and they wanted to do it on a certain date. And the commandant of the Marine Corps' office said, oh, no, he's got to come back at the end of the 2 weeks, and we'll get him discharged before the parade. That was on November the 6th. We're going to do the parade. So they say that it was the largest parade that my community had ever had. And I had just married on the 17th of October to the lady I've been engaged to ever since I went into the Marine Corps for 2.5 years. And we're riding in a red 1942 Dodge convertible. And I'm sitting up on the back seat on the outside. And these young ladies are coming out, running up to the car and kissing me on the cheek. You think I made... Oh, my wife was not very happy.
Well, ladies and gentlemen,
Well, let me tell one more thing.
all right, not to interrupt.
Is the father still here? Is
Father,
he-
Pastor, Pastor,
Yes, I am. Yes, I'm here.
Oh, okay. Well, you'll appreciate this, I think.
I appreciate every minute of this.
The first time I went into the Marine Corps, they had one sheet of paper that you had to fill out. We had to fill it out with a little stubby pencil about that long, because we couldn't use ink. You know, you had those ink wells, and you had to put a pen in it and sign 2 or 3 words and do it again. So they gave us a pencil to fill out the paper, and so I filled it out, and going to hand it to the recruiter when I got to it. There was a long line waiting to get in the Marine Corps. But there was one question on there and had the heading, religion. And that was the only word. It had a little block, and you're supposed to write whatever your religion was in that little block. Well, I didn't know what to put in there. I'd never been to church in my life. I'd never heard of Catholics and Episcopalians and Episcopians and all that. Baptists. I never heard of that. So I'm standing behind a little short Italian fellow. He's a little shorter than I am. He's maybe an inch or so shorter. And he's got his paper ready to go. And I look over to see what he's got in his paper. And I still got my little stubby pencil. And I see this letter C. So I thought, well, he knows what's in there. So I put the letter C in mine. I became a Catholic right there.
ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause for Woody Williams.
Thank you very much.
And I'll pass it over to Randy.
Hey, there you go. So if you don't know me, I'm Randy Stone, General Manager of Military Veterans Resources for American Airlines. And what a great pleasure having you here. You're literally one of a kind now, and we appreciate you coming and tell your story. Taco, thanks for playing Oprah today. Doing that thing. And our goal in the Military and Veterans Department, actually, community relations for the company is to do more of these and really bring in leaders, not just military, but other leaders, and gain appreciation for those who've led themselves in great ways. So, and Woody meet that standard and then some. So, and I know everyone's probably going to want their picture with him, but what we're going to do, we have a schedule to keep. Plus, also, we're kind of trying to keep Woody. There's still this virus out there going on. You might have heard about it in the news. So, we'll maybe have the airmen, since you're in uniform, come on down here for a photo of it. But respect some social distancing with Woody. But let's give it up once more time for Woody Williams.
Thank you.
Thanks, man. Great job.
Hello.
Go up there with him. You go up there with him. Take off your mask for a second. Don't breathe. Ready? Good job. There you go. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your service.